All right, let's go to our second conversation. The federal government has introduced a new telecommunication tax to provide finance to subsidize the cost of provision of healthcare services to vulnerable persons in the country. This new tax regime is contained on the National Health Insurance Authority Bill 2021, signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari on May 19th. The law defines the vulnerable group as children under 5, pregnant women, the aged, physically and mentally challenged persons, and the indigent, as may be defined from time to time. According to Nigerian Communications Commission, Nigerians made 150.83 billion minutes of calls in 2020, translating to 9.05 trillion seconds of calls. This indicates that the new tax will generate 9.05 trillion kobo, which converts to 90.49 billion naira yearly. This new tax is coming despite moves by telecom companies to increase the price of calls, SMS, and data by 40%. And as a result of an unfavorable operating environment. However, telecom subscribers under the aegis of National Association of Telecom Subscribers say they will reject the move by the government, adding that this development will further aid corruption in the system. Joining me via Zoom to break this down, to understand what it means, is Ugochi Ndebbio. She's a lawyer and associate director at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Thank you very much for your time on the show.
Hello?
Go ahead, you're live.
Hello?
Ugochi, you're live. Can you hear me? So let me ask you, what is your reaction to this move by the government to set up a phone call tax? Hello, Ugochi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I lost you for a bit.
Okay, go ahead. I'm talking about, what's your first reaction to Nigerian government setting up this new phone call tax to fund healthcare services? How does it come to you?
Okay. First and foremost, thank you very much for having me on this program. I'm very delighted to be here today.
All right.
Well, the last few days, this has actually been making the rounds. And my first impression, I will be like the rest of Nigerians to say, how much more tax are we going to impose on telecom charges? In the last 2 years, we have seen almost a 300% increase in taxes that have been focused on this area. So my first reaction will be for how long are we going to focus on this area? We know that this area has generated a lot of revenue, particularly since COVID times. They have had quite a boost, but there's only so much you're going to milk a cow and expect that you continue to bleed it right. However, it's also good to point out that in the last 1 day, in fact, since yesterday, there have also been controversies around whether this provision was indeed inserted into the law or not. But I'm sure that as we proceed, we'll have this conversation. But yes, my first reaction will be, how many things are we going to put on telecom charges?
I still have Ugochi Ndebbio, who's a lawyer and associate director with PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I'm saying that this boarding, now what's the implication or the impact on the telecommunications industry in its entirety? We know this sector has been contributing so much to GDP. What do you think this would, what impact will this have on the sector?
Well, the impact on the sector, really, we have to look at it from different angles. First and foremost, of course, it has contributed significantly to the GDP. However, we know that there are also talks of increasing data fees, and then we have this 300% increase in taxes. So in terms of how it's going to translate, yes, the government will get additional revenue from this. However, what we may see is that really when it comes to demand and supply, at a point when it gets too expensive, what we may end up seeing is a decline in revenue, because people will then start to look for alternative sources to make sure that really, because if the costs are not matching with the with the cost of living and the rest of the other expenses people have to make, then really they're going to end up, it's going to tank. So we need to be sure that we are not unduly burdening this sector to make sure that we don't see a decline.
The telecom sector, of course, is an enabler of other sectors, and when this happens, it means it will definitely also have a ripple effect on other sectors of the economy. Now, how can government manage all of this? Because the move to get money from the non-oil space is something that the government must do at this time. We agree. But do you think there should be a human face to it? The effects on Nigerians is getting so much out. What other effects, now talking about being an enabler, how will it affect other sectors of the economy?
Well, in terms of being an enabler to, for other sectors of the economy, data, right now, a lot of things work on data. Technology and the telecom space is driving a lot of other sectors. What like I had explained, really, it's about, if you continue to bleed an already existing cash cow, there is only so much that you're going to get out of it, and then if you then try to, if you don't focus on other areas of the economy to say, I know, like you explained, tax is an area that, that we have to we have to maximize, really, in order to sustain our environment. But there are other areas, we need to look at the other sectors of the economy that have not been taxed. We need to try and increase taxation of the informal sector, and not just the already captured sector. You just continue to increase continue to multiply the taxes on it. It's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable practice, and it's something that the government has to or should really look into it. And I don't know if you heard at the earlier part of it when I had talked to say that in between yesterday and today, the National Health Insurance Authority has come out to say that that section of the law, it's actually not there in the version that was signed by the president. So really, maybe we should then wait to see what the gazetted copy looks like, before we then continue to harp on this particular topic.
Indeed, indeed. Let's project and at least make some issues around it. VAT, yes, VAT is about 7.5%. Excise at about 5%. Healthcare levy at 9%. This is an increase of, this is about 21.5%. Breaking this down, and our tax to GDP ratio still remains very, very low. What is responsible for this?
Well, because again, we're still not focusing on the things that are going to drive this. There's only so much you're going to get from the already taxed sector. In terms of, to increase your tax to GDP ratio, it's more than just looking at the sectors that are already captured and then seeking to impose more and more tax on it. What's going to happen is they're going to have a ripple effect on the other sector, on the other parts of the economy. If the price of making calls goes up, we're already screaming that inflation is high, cost of living in Nigeria is high, cost of food is high. Every other thing is going to skyrocket. But then there are still sectors of the economy that haven't been brought into the tax net. Now, we know the government is also doing well in terms of, seeking to tax the digital economy. That's a new area they're trying to bring into the tax net. But then the informal sector is still a huge untapped area. There are also, other areas and aspects of taxation that the government could look into instead of, trying to. You have already taxed. There's a 7.5% already on telecom. There is, this year alone, the excise tax was included at 5%, like you have said, and now again, that's another 9%. In the last 2 years, we would have recorded a 300% increase in tax alone on just GSM calls. It's not a sustainable practice. What is going to happen is that it's going to kill, it's really going to tank the business of the telecom sector. And, that's not something we want to see. We want to see sustainable growth in that sector. We also want to see sustainable growth in other aspects of the Nigerian, economy, and not just to focus on one area of, of the economy and then seek to continue to tax it, tax upon tax. I mean, even this moves away from, the policy of, of trying to remove multiple taxation and also just try to streamline taxation. You can't keep taxing one source of revenue over and over again. It's not sustainable. But yes, we do agree that, I mean, the health insurance, the vulnerable group is an area that, that needs to be catered for. The Nigerian health, the health sector is, in fact, the health insurance as of today covers only about 5% of the Nigerian economy. And that is, in fact, if you look at the World Bank ranking for Nigeria, it's really one of the lowest. So yes, it is a good initiative to try and bring more people under the health insurance scheme. However, if we look at the practice in other jurisdictions, there are other ways that other jurisdictions have sought to go about this. And then even if we say, oh, let's take it out, what is left in the act is not able to sustain that vulnerable group. Because really, what would then be left is the 1% from the, what's it called again, from the basic healthcare provision fund, which was already there under the health insurance, the National Health Act. So nothing would have changed if we take out this. So there has to be, yes, we do agree, there has to be, a part of it that is levied, this, the part of this fund that has to be generated from tax. But what we don't agree is taxing the same pot over and over again.
Okay, now before we wrap up this discussion, many are saying that this might even affect service delivery, that it might reduce the value of service. Alton is already saying this, but I'll ask you in two ways. What more can be done? Is it to automate or to make tax payments easier so that people can willingly want to pay and not evade tax payments across board?
Thank you for that question. It is a multifaceted answer because, it's a multifaceted question with different things that can be done to drive voluntary tax payments. Now, really, the man on the streets, the main question the man on the streets asks is, the one that have been paying, where's the accountability? We need to do a whole lot more in terms of accountability. People don't trust that the taxes they pay will be used for the right things. Now, we have other taxes currently that are being used to fund social infrastructure. Take, for example, the tertiary education tax that is supposedly being used to fund at TET. Now, yes, I agree that in the last 10 years, we've had over 2 trillion contributed through this fund. And yes, it may not be enough to revamp the entire tertiary education in Nigeria. However, it should go far. And then again, we have also seen from reports, in terms of accountability, that a lot of it has been, some of it has been mismanaged. And that's really the question for people. We contribute all of this, we don't see the effects. One, there has to be better accountability in terms of what we're doing with the tax. 2 is Nigeria as a country, we need to reduce the cost of governance so that it's not just to tax people over and over again, where we know that the enabling environment is not there for sustainable growth, for growth of the economy. So people are literally trying to survive, and then, they just feel like more and more tax is going to, is being put on them. In order to drive voluntary compliance, what you see, particularly in jurisdictions where this is done, is that people feel comfortable and they trust the government to say that, yes, if I pay this thing, if I discomfort myself and pay this amount of tax, I'm sure that it's going to be used for the right purpose. So yes, automation can help, making it easier for people to be able to pay the tax without going through the hassles of having to go to the tax authorities and queuing up and all of that. It will help, but it's really going to be a combination of several factors to make sure that really, that it's not just, making it easier for people, but people have a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction knowing that their taxes are being used to do the right things.
Well, it's a good way to live it. I must thank you so much, Ugochi Ndebbio. She's a lawyer and associate director, PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's the first time on the show. Thank you so much. Hope to have you join us again soon.
Thank you very much, Tolu.